Today, I have a fantastic person, my friend, a co host, and the beautiful guest here, Kyla Cheatham. So, Kyla, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Judith. It's an honor to be here, and I so appreciate you featuring me. I am an expert in front end, specifically managed service marketing and communications. When we talk about business processes and how that really drives managed services in our environment. So, essentially, how do you talk to your customers about a software or a service that's not quite tangible? It's not product, right? It's more of service-based relationship building and business development. So I've created, a career in kind of a niche area in the space with my company, The Confluential, of helping bring all of these great services into market. And that's kind of our commitment to our ERP community here is saying, how do you essentially market your services to potential customers or network throughout our industry to make sure that you're leveraging all of the strategic partnership opportunities that we have, because I think we are one of the industries that's pretty unique in the fact of we have a very big group of specialists. So knowing that you have the opportunity to kind of work together and do a collaborative engagement is such a cool opportunity. So I wanted to bring the successes I found in my career and kind of pass them along to my friends and colleagues in managed services specifically to teach them essentially how to market themselves in a social selling capacity or an automation and AI capacity within their CRM environment. So that's kind of what we do. We also have a practice at the Confluential that is features technology just integration in general. So how do you create a strategy throughout all these ancillary systems in your organization and ensure that you're getting the output you need to make good strategic decisions?
And that is beautiful, right? So, one thing that actually fascinates me about you, I'm sure it fascinates many of us in the ERP industry, is your career path. So, you've been awarded many different things. And for me, especially, your career path has taken you in very different angles, so which has helped you create this beautiful thing. So, how did you start your career?
Yeah, so I started my career actually in the action sports industry. And how do you leverage technology for action sports to actually create an ROI? So I've always been on the front end of leveraging new technology or new innovations within an industry and showing how that attaches to tangible data and ROI. So for a long time, and you had mentioned some awards, but that's what I won, my 40 under 40 award for, was kind of pioneering that practice of how do you leverage things like social media in an event or action sports environment and create a relationship with a customer. And I always give my clients the example because a lot of times they're like, I don't know what to do with content. I don't know how to put it out there. And I'm like, well, I used to write social media for Mountain Dew, and their persona is a 14-year-old boy. I've never been a 14-year-old boy, but I was able to write like one in order to create that relationship for the customer. And that's kind of the point, is being able to get that content out there and test it. So I was kind of, on the front end of back in the day when social media was first being used as a business tool of how do we put out this post and then attach it back to what return on investment that actually looked like. So that whole integration from distribution to completion. And then I moved into managed services that really focuses on how do you do that in a customer life cycle that can take sometimes a year to buy from you. So how do you create that relationship on those terms where it's not about just creating a transactional based link where they go buy a product, but it's about making sure that you're able to create that relationship with the customer through leveraging your CRM. So
Mhm.
it's really about those customer relationships, right? So that's kind of what I've built this company around. of making sure that we're actually leveraging technology to create these relationships in kind of startup environments. So we only work on our side of the practice with companies that are under 50 million in revenue. And there's a reason for that, so that we can leverage their front end business processes and really optimize that through utilizing tools like Gen AI to make sure they're efficient but authentic. So there's a balance to both of those different things. So many times we see in managed services is we go out and we put out this great content, but we have nothing that actually attaches it to making sure that we're getting this data within our lead generation tools. So creating that data capture is so critical, just as it would be for an internal ERP system to have that same sort of proficient data and mature data to leverage and make good business decisions. That's what we need to optimize the front end of the business to do. So that's kind of where I started my career, and then moved into really more of the technical aspects of ERP and making sure that we could leverage, you know, my passion for technology and get all of our great community featured in that area where we can grow our businesses.
And this is again very amazing for me, right? So for many of us, the concepts that you talk about, like social selling and
Mhm.
leveraging your network and also making your services known to those who would probably need it, all are very, very good, very useful concepts for many of us navigating this ERP. This concept from an ERP standpoint, it is very challenging, and that's where your services come in, right? So it's like you knowing the ERP industry, you overlap all those beautiful concepts and you create this beautiful blanket that is actually used and reused by
Mhm.
many, many of us. So what you do is really beautiful. And coming to what you do as Confluential, what made you create the Confluential? It's a beautiful name, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I spent a lot of time in the ERP industry helping to, build companies, and taking some of that methodology and winning some Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies awards for front end processes that I had built. And I really looked at, what do I want kind of my personal and professional life, the conscious pause I took, if you will. So I stepped back from, being an executive at some other ERP consulting firms, and really thought about, like, how do I provide value, but at the same time do it my way, right? Be able to really do it in a way that I felt like had my values in mind when it comes to integrity, growth, honesty, really being able to bring all of the things that I'm very passionate about talking about in the industry that I think we need more of. How do I do that? And so our lifestyle, my family and I, we live in rural Colorado, and we kind of joke we live in a very small town on the western slope of Colorado in a valley. We call it our own Silicon Valley because typically you wouldn't find a lot of very technical companies that are based in this area of the world. But that lifestyle is what we believe is what we need more of in technology, and bringing that ability to really mirror natural integrations with technology integrations. So many times we see companies trying to force a round peg into a square hole. And instead of being able to say, how does this actually work for the employee? How would the employee do this naturally? And how would it flow throughout the organization naturally? We have all of these canned best practices where vendors are saying, no, you need to do it this way, or SIs are saying, no, you need to do it this way. So I know Judith, talk a lot about kind of bringing in ancient wisdom or more of that consciousness into a very technical subject, which I deeply admire your ability to kind of remind us about that. I think that's so critical. And that's a lot of what we kind of tried to do with the confluence. So it's the confluence and the confluential. So the confluence is looking at like how a river confluence. So a river is made up of a variety of other rivers swimming into one main channel, right? And a lot of times that's how we look at business processes. How does it naturally flow and what's for the organization, as opposed to, what is your competitor doing, or what is, the shop down the street doing? How does your manufacturing shop floor actually utilize all of these business processes and get the data that's best for you to make good strategic decisions? And what technology do you need to do that? And for the front end, the part of the practice that I manage, we use a lot of that on what are you good at bringing value to the industry, and let's leverage that. It's not anything that you need to push yourself to be a different expert in. You don't need all of these credentials beside your name, that nobody knows what they mean, type of thing, to actually bring value to the industry. So as long as you're doing good work and it feels natural, just like we see kind of in our spaces up here, specifically with us and Rivers being, a big fly fisher woman. That's kind of where I got the idea of to name it that, because you really look at this is nature's way of putting things into motion and producing water, which is, a fundamental need for human life. How can we leverage technology to be as natural to the organization and create that holistic wild culture, if you will? So that's kind of where we came up with that name, because what we do is so different.
And like, again, nature is the best teacher, right? And this is beautiful just by
Mhm.
observing nature and every element that comes in it. You created this beautiful thing, and we can see this come to life. A lot of people we know interact with you, and they see that happening, which is multiple ideas, multiple thoughts, and multiple streams of knowledge coming together to create this beautiful thing, which is the giver of life. Like when you look at a river or an ocean or anything, it gives life. So that is what we are trying to do in the ERP industry, breathe some life into it and create something very, very
Mhm.
powerful when we all work together. So it is wonderful, Kyler. And just before we finish, something very interesting that we both share is parenting. So you're a parent of a
Yep.
very young family, and
Mhm.
I am a parent too. So we both enjoy parenting, and we also enjoy
Mhm.
creating or building this beautiful thing. So, what is something that you would like to share for those young minds who are thinking about how am I going to, work through ERP with all my other responsibilities that I have?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for this question, because it's so important, especially for moms that work outside the home or inside the home. When we look at the balancing of those responsibilities, and I think we look at it, you and I, our work together, as a great case study. You live in Australia, which is across the world from me. I live in the United States, so a lot of times we're working outside of those core hours. And I think when it comes to parenting, a lot of times we think that parenting should be a center of shame. Our children should be a center of where we, have to kind of hide them behind the camera in order to, be professional. And I think a lot of times the people that we most admire don't do that. They drop that veil and embrace that authentic parenting and transparency of sometimes, my kids jump in the screen, or, we've recorded this episode, they've interrupted me 3 times. That's just how that works. And the beauty of that is I think it humanizes us in the industry to say, yes, I am a parent of a 4 and 5 year old. I am now working, and you might see it's after school hours. You might see my 4 and 5 year old. If that's a problem for you, then I'm not a good match for you. And that's okay, right? But being able to really own that and say that, whether you're looking for, a consultant position, a full-time employee position at some ERP vendor, an SI, anywhere, I think really owning your identity as a parent and being transparent about that is something that I think is so critical. Especially in our world, where we still see, over 85% of students graduating with computer science degrees are male here in the United States. So we want to create change around that conversation of saying, yes, you can have both. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, right? You're never going to go to sleep at night and saying, I did parenting perfectly and then I did my career perfectly, right? There's a balance, especially when they're young. But if you can, kind of take a step back, practice Judith's conscious pause that she talks about, and think about, I have, maybe 10 years of my children really being totally present in my life. And then after that, they grow up and they begin to do other things and form their own identity. So I think taking that 10 years, really honoring that and saying, that's what I'm going to do, that's my intention. But I also still have a lot of great ideas and value to bring to the marketplace. And I think having that conversation, I know that a lot of times is vague how we give that, like, just own your identity. I remember being a young professional being like, but my boss doesn't like that type of thing. And I think the best thing in those situations is to find a mentor. Just find someone you admire, reach out to them, even if you don't know them on LinkedIn, and saying, I'd like to take 10 minutes to ask you these 5 questions. How do you balance parenting? How do you have difficult conversations with your management? To say, I can't stay for this project kickoff because I have soccer tryouts. How do you have those conversations, and you can practice them in that environment? And I guarantee that 9 times out of 10, that person is going to answer you and going to give you that time, because they too have been that young professional at one point in their career where they needed that guidance. And then hopefully you remember to kind of pay that cycle forward as you get further in your career. And I will say, I love my identity as a parent, and I think there's no better practice and training for change management or an ERP
Yeah.
implementation than pivoting with parenting, because your implementation roadmap of raising young humans is never going to go the way you think it's going to go, right? So being able to, stay positive, stay resilient, but remember that you have the ultimate goal, which is raising whole, healthy kids. I think it's an amazing practice for looking at implementations. I actually wrote an article around how moms make the best project managers. I often,
Oh, yes.
when moms are coming out of the workforce and they had managed a home, I'm like, that person. I want to talk to that person, because they are going to
Person.
know how to budget, how to pivot, how to do all of these different things that is just not taught in a corporate environment a lot of times. So I think there's so much to be learned from those two intersections of personal and professional life.
And this is something amazing, right? And I totally admire what you say, and I, adore it. So for me personally, when I think about it, being a parent made me a better consultant, and there is
Oh
no
yeah,
going
yeah.
back to it. So I understand, and I really deeply understand, and I care because, as you say, raising a human is a totally different ballgame. Yes, it teaches us a lot of things, and also helps us transform, helps us pivot, and helps us navigate a lot of things which are better. And to young parents of any gender listening to this, if you're considering a career in ERP, yes, this definitely go for it, because there is a lot of us
Mhm.
like me and Kyler
Amen.
who will endorse what you're choosing to do. And if you're on the fence, talk to both of us, and we are in a
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and reach out to us, because ERP
Yeah.
as an industry, we need talented people like you, committed to creating a better world, and we do it together. And this is something, all of us, if we work together, we get more success in digital transformation, and we influence lives in a positive way. And this is something Kyler and I are very passionate about,
Mhm.
and this is something we are working really hard on creating a better world through digital transformation.
Mhm.
So, Kyler, thank you very much for your time, and
Yeah.
thank you you know for giving me the opportunity to be in the space with you. And now, how can clients or mentees or anyone reach out to you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I have a personal commitment to myself to answer every comment and to answer every DM. So I always invite you to look at that. You can go to theconfluential.com and you can actually book time with our team directly if you want to. We do both just a consultation to kind of take a look at what you got under the hood there. And then also consultant coaching. Just a lot of people reach out and say, how can I utilize these methodologies to start my own practice or to get to know the network so that that person calls me? Because as you know better than anyone, Judith, usually when you have a hard client and you have a hard project, you know who to call. And that's comes from networking. It's not like, we're searching on LinkedIn. We already know, or somebody else knows who they're going to call. So getting in that area of understanding how you become that person is something, that I'm super passionate about helping with. So definitely hit me up on LinkedIn or check out the website as well. We just launched in 2024, so it is, a rather new company, but we actually launched about 6 months before we told anyone that we actually launched because we were so full with just referral clients, which we're very grateful for. But we have a lot of open positions as well. So if you're interested in kind of joining the team, I invite you to kind of reach out and see what we're about and what that looks like from all over the world. We have partners and consultants. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you just in general about what's going on and how we can potentially help, or just even to say hi and network is always a good thing too.
Hi, and thank you very much, Kyler. And this is an awesome opportunity. So, for anyone considering talking to Kyler, please do. Kyler is a wealth of knowledge, and she's an amazing connector. So, if you connect with Kyler, you're connecting to, I mean, a lot of us in the industry. So that's the flavor that Kyler brings to the table. It's the confluential. So bringing it all together and helping transform the world. So thank you, Kyler, and thank you for the great work you do.